My name is Lily. I'm 27 years old, and I work as a preschool teacher in a small town. I've always believed in love, the kind of love that grows slowly, like a flower that opens one petal at a time. I was never the type of girl who rushed into things. I like to take my time, to understand people, to trust gently. But even then, sometimes love doesn't go as planned. I met Ethan when I was 22. He was 25, funny, charming, and full of dreams. We met at a local coffee shop. I remember that day like it was yesterday. I had just finished a stressful day at school, and I walked into my favorite cafe to relax. I ordered my usual, a caramel latte with extra foam, and as I turned to find a seat, I accidentally spilled it all over a stranger. That stranger was Ethan. Instead of getting mad, he laughed. "Looks like I'm wearing your coffee now," he said, smiling as he grabbed some napkins. I apologized 100 times, but he just kept joking. We ended up talking for over 2 hours. It felt like I had known him forever. From that day on, we became inseparable. We went on hikes, cooked meals together, and shared our dreams. Ethan wanted to start his own business, and I wanted to open a daycare. We supported each other. We were a team. But love is not always enough. As time passed, things changed. Ethan's business started growing, but so did his stress. He began working late, missing dates, forgetting promises. I tried to be understanding. I told myself he was just busy, that he still loved me. But the more I gave, the more I felt alone. One evening, we had a big fight. It started over something small. He forgot our anniversary. Again. But the argument became about everything. About how I felt invisible. About how he never had time. About how I missed the man who laughed at spilled coffee, he shouted. I cried. And then he said the words I never thought he would say. Maybe we need a break. I didn't answer. I just packed my things and left. The next few weeks were painful. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Everywhere I went reminded me of him. The coffee shop, the park bench. Even my kitchen smelled like the pasta he used to make on Sundays. I tried to move on. I talked to my friends. I focused on work. I even started journaling. But my heart still ached. I kept thinking about him, about us. Were we really over, or were we just lost? 3 months passed. One rainy afternoon, as I sat by the window with a book, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Ethan. Hey, Lily. I know I have no right to ask, but can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time. My heart beat fast. Should I answer? What if he just wanted to say goodbye again? But something inside me whispered, talk to him. So I did. We met at the same coffee shop where it all began. He was already there, sitting at our usual table. He looked different, tired, thinner, but his eyes still had that warmth I remembered. Hi, he said softly. Hi, I replied, my voice barely louder than the rain outside. We talked for hours. He told me everything. How lost he felt without me. How work had taken over his life. How he realized, too late, that success meant nothing without someone to share it with. He apologized, truly apologized, not with excuses, but with real regret. I messed up, Lily, he said. I put my dreams above us. I didn't see how much you were hurting. I was selfish. I understand if you can't forgive me, but I had to tell you. You deserved better. Tears filled my eyes. I had dreamed of this moment so many times, but now that it was here, I didn't know what to say. I took a deep breath. I appreciate your honesty, Ethan. I really do. But how do I know things will be different? How do I know you won't forget again? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notebook. This is what I've been doing the last 2 months. It's a journal. I started writing every day about my mistakes, about what I want to change. I've been seeing a therapist. I'm trying to become a better man, not just for you, but for myself. I opened the journal and read a few pages. His words were raw, real, full of pain and hope. He had written about our fights, about his guilt, about the small moments he missed, like the way I laughed when I was sleepy or how I always danced while cooking. Something inside me cracked. Not in a painful way, but in a healing way. Maybe, just maybe, people can grow. Maybe people can change, if they really want to. But giving someone a second chance isn't easy. It's scary. You have to trust again, to risk your heart again. And I wasn't sure if I was strong enough. We left the cafe without making any promises. I told him I needed time. He nodded, saying, "I'll wait, no matter how long." The days that followed were confusing. My mind said, "Be careful." But my heart said, "What if this is love worth fighting for?" I made a list, not of pros and cons, but of feelings. I wrote about the pain, the loneliness, but also about the laughter, the dreams, the memories. I asked myself one question over and over. Do I still love him? And the answer was yes. But love alone wasn't enough. This time, I needed to see effort, patience, respect. Not just words, but actions. So I called him. "Ethan," I said, "I'm not saying yes. I'm saying maybe. If you want another chance, you have to earn it." His voice trembled. "I will. I promise, Lily. One step at a time." So that's how we started again. Slowly. Like strangers learning each other all over again. We didn't jump back into a relationship. We started with small things. Coffee dates, walks in the park, sharing books. We talked, we listened, we laughed again. But more than anything, we healed. He showed up, on time, with flowers, with honesty. He never made big promises, but he kept the small ones. He learned to balance work and life. And I learned to speak up when I felt hurt, to not hide my feelings. 6 months later, he took me back to the same park where we had our first picnic. As we sat on the grass, watching the sunset, he looked into my eyes and said, "Thank you for believing in me. I won't waste this chance." I smiled. "It's not about being perfect, Ethan. It's about showing up. And you're doing that." The months that followed were quiet, kind, and full of new beginnings. It wasn't a movie-style comeback. There were no big dramatic kisses in the rain. Instead, it was real. Sometimes boring, sometimes awkward, but always honest. Ethan and I were like two people learning to walk again, one step at a time. We talked a lot, sometimes for hours, about our past, our fears, our dreams. I told him about the nights I cried alone and the days I felt invisible. He didn't get defensive this time. He listened. Truly listened. And when he answered, He didn't say, "You're overreacting." He said, "I'm sorry." One evening I asked him, "Why now? Why did you come back when you could have just moved on?" He looked at me and said quietly, "Because I realized something. I didn't lose you the day you walked out. I lost you months before that, when I stopped paying attention, when I stopped loving you the right way. And once I understood that, I couldn't breathe without trying to fix it. That stayed with me, because he didn't come back to make himself feel better. He came back to take responsibility. He came back ready to grow. We built a new relationship, not the old one we left behind, but something better, something healthier. We made new rules. We would always talk before sleeping, even if it was uncomfortable. We would set weekly time just for us. No phones, no work, just time. And we agreed to check in with each other emotionally. "How are you really feeling?" became a regular question. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes I still got scared. There were days when I thought, what if he forgets again? But every time I opened that old fear, Ethan was there. Not with big promises, but with little actions. 1. Saturday morning, I found a sticky note on my bathroom mirror. It read, "I'm proud of you, Lily, for forgiving, for growing, for being brave. I love you." He didn't have to do that, but he did. And that's what second chances are made of. Not grand gestures, but everyday kindness. Then something happened that tested us again. One evening, Ethan came home late from work. He had promised to be at dinner by 7. I had cooked his favorite, lasagna with garlic bread. But 7 turned into 8, and then 9. My heart sank. Old fears returned. Was he changing back? Was I being fooled? I didn't scream when he walked in. I just said, "You promised." He looked heartbroken. "Lily, I'm sorry. I had to fix a problem with a client and I didn't even notice the time. I should have called." I crossed my arms. "You should have." Then he did something new. He sat down, looked me in the eyes, and said, "You're right. No excuses. I hurt you. Let me fix this." He lit candles. He warmed up the food, and we sat down at 10 p.m. to eat cold lasagna by candlelight. And you know what? It was one of the most romantic meals we ever had. Not because of the food, but because he chose me, even after a long, hard day. That's when I knew. This second, chance was working, we kept growing. And then, one autumn afternoon, something beautiful happened. We were walking in the park, holding hands. The leaves were falling, the air was crisp, and everything felt calm. Ethan stopped near a tree where we had once carved our initials years ago. He knelt down. Not with a big crowd. Not with music. Not with drama. Just us and the wind and the memory of all we had been through. He pulled out a small box and said, "Lily, I hurt you once, and you could have walked away forever. But you didn't. You gave me a chance. You let me earn your trust. I don't want to just be your boyfriend anymore. I want to be your partner. For life. Will you marry me?" My hands shook. My heart raced, and through tears I whispered, "Yes." Not because I forgot the pain, but because I remembered the growth. Because I saw a man who wasn't just saying sorry, he was living it. Our wedding wasn't huge. just close friends, family, and a lot of love. As I walked down the aisle, I looked at Ethan and thought about everything we had survived. Fights, silence, distance, healing. And I smiled, because I wasn't marrying the man I had left. I was marrying the man he had become. Now, a year into our marriage, we still make mistakes. We still argue sometimes. But we also make time, apologize quickly, and celebrate the little things. Sometimes people ask me, "Why did you give your ex one last chance?" And I tell them this: because he changed. Because he showed up. Because he didn't ask for love. He earned it. Because sometimes the hardest decision is also the right one. And because when love returns, not with empty words but with steady hands, open eyes and a willing heart, it deserves a second chance.